All right. So, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, apparently, we needed some help with the CSEC bio preparation, right? So, you just have your paper one to go. So, I said I'll come on the live and do some questions to help you guys kind of just feel more comfortable and prepared and to kind of have a gauge as to what you can expect for the exam, right? So, let's just check out why's in the chat if you are seeing and hearing me okay. Just making sure I'm not talking to myself for the next hour and a half. Hi, Sarah. See, it wasn't our last class, right? I told you guys I might have show up on Saturday, and here I am. So we're going to be going through some questions. And, as always, feel comfortable to drop your answers in the chat. Let me know what you think is the answer. And of course, as we're going through, if there's any question that you don't understand why the answer is the answer, you let me know and I'll explain it for you, right? It's important to not just learn off the answers to these questions, but to know why the answer is the answer, because you can get subtle variations of a question. And if you just learn off the answer, then, that mightn't be the answer the next time around. So you have to just ensure that you are comfortable with understanding why the answer is the answer, okay? Let me see. All right, so jumping right into it, we have which of the following characteristics is used to distinguish insects from other arthropods? This is going to be number of legs, hairiness, color, or shape. I'll just be casually sipping my coffee in the meantime. Yeah, so we're going to be using the number of legs. Nice. Living organisms such as plants are affected by abiotic factors which determine where they become established. Which of the following options describe some of these determining factors? So we're looking for abiotic factors. Is it going to be parasitism, commensalism, mutualism, sediment size, shape and color, sunlight availability, soil pH, minerals, deforestation, slash and burn, or shifting cultivation? This one is going to be C. You want to have your abiotic factors alone being highlighted. 3. A 50-gram sample of fresh soil is repeatedly heated at 110 degrees Celsius and cooled in a desiccator. The final constant weight of the soil is 35 grams. The soil component eliminated by this procedure is most likely going to be, is it air, water, humus, or mineral? It's going to be B, water, right? This is heating to constant mass. You're going to heat, weigh, and then once you get the same mass for 2 in sequential order, you know that you would have effectively removed all of the water. Item 4 refers to the following food web. How many complete food chains can be formed from the food web shown above? Is it going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4? Thoughts on the paper too. I thought it was pretty doable. A little, everything was on the syllabus, but it just was it came in a little uncharacteristic way, but I still think it was a fairly doable paper. So everyone is saying that we could get 3 food chains from this food web. So you have plant, squirrel, hawk, or you could go plant, squirrel, ocelot, or you could go plant, iguana, ocelot. So yes, we can get 3 different food chains from this food web. Infestations of mealybugs can cause severe damage to hibiscus plants, and very often ladybird beetles are introduced to reduce the mealybug population. To be quite honest, I know I teach bio, I love bio, but you see me in the mix with all of these beetles and mealybugs, I'm good. But anyway, the relationship between the mealybugs and the ladybird beetles are described as, would that be parasitism, mutualism, prey predator, or commensalism? Is going to be prey predator, right? So because you're using one to naturally control the population size of the other, it's going to be a prey predator relationship, to be specific. which is a form of parasitism, but it's very specifically predator-prey, right? So we always have to pick the best answer of the options. Bacteria play an important role in the cycling of nitrogen. Which of the following organisms is not part of this cycle? Is it Rhizobium, Nitrobacter, Nitrosomonas, or Streptococcus? It's going to be D. You're pretty quiet in this one, right? So strep has nothing to do, like you heard, people have strep throat and that kind of things, but it has nothing to do with nitrogen cycling, right? Rhizobium for nitrogen fixing, Nitrobacter and Nitrosomonas are nitrifying bacteria to help convert your nitrites into nitrates. But strep, nothing to do with the cycling of nitrogens. Let me zoom out here. Item 7 refers to the following diagram of energy transfer from the sun, right? So energy flow through ecosystems is not 100% efficient. This is so because energy is it going to be A, lost during respiration and excretion, recycled from plants to the atmosphere, circular, moving in and out of organisms, or D, linear, moving from one organism to the next? Is going to be A, right? It is lost during respiration and excretion. So this diagram here is showing both the flow of energy and nutrients, but we're going to be looking at the arrows with the solid arrowheads. Those are the ones representing the flow of energy, and the arrows with the hollow or empty arrowheads, those will be representing the flow of nutrients, right? So you're seeing a more cycling happening with those compared to energy, which is going from sun to producers, being lost as heat from respiration from each level, and you're not seeing it being recycled in any way, right? 8, which of the following practices can be used in the conservation or restoration of an ecosystem? You have restricted hunting seasons, quarrying to remove limestone, or planting of mangrove along the shoreline. It's going to be 1 only, 2 only, 1 and 3 only, or 1, 2, and 3. So conservation or restoration of an ecosystem is going to be something positive, right? But quarrying to remove limestone is a destructive practice. So we basically don't want any option that has 2 in it, right? So that would eliminate D, eliminate B, and definitely planting of mangrove along the shoreline is protective. It does buffer the shoreline from erosion, from the waves, etc. Restricting hunting seasons are going to allow different populations to be able to replenish themselves. So 1 and 3 is definitely going to be good. Any option with 2 is bad. So the correct answer here would be C. Why isn't it, Chad? So which of the following are effects of pollutants on coral reefs in the Caribbean? We have 1, increase in macroalgal and seagrass growth, less reef fish, or more branching corals. Do we think it's 1 and 2 only, 1 and 3 only, 2 and 3 only, or 1, 2, and 3? For question 9. So for question 9, definitely more branching corals will be associated with a positive thing and not the effect of pollutants, right? So any option with 3 is going to be out, which would leave A as the only correct answer. Good. 10, which of the following are true about the effect of carbon monoxide from exhaust? Is it that 1, it binds reversibly with hemoglobin, 2, it binds more easily with hemoglobin, 3, it prevents oxygen transport by hemoglobin? Is it going to be 1 and 2 only, 1 and 3 only, 2 and 3 only, or 1, 2, and 3? No, see, we have no thoughts on this one. So carbon monoxide, your hemoglobin in your red blood cells has a higher affinity for carbon monoxide than it does oxygen. So if you have oxygen present and you have carbon monoxide present, the hemoglobin in your red blood cells will be, it wants to transport or bind to carbon monoxide more than it would want to bind to oxygen. So it definitely reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of your hemoglobin and your red blood cells by extension, right? So it's going to bind more easily. So carbon monoxide does bind more easily with hemoglobin. It does bind reversibly with hemoglobin, and it is going to prevent oxygen transport by hemoglobin, because if it's carrying carbon monoxide, it's not carrying oxygen. So the correct answer is going to be D. Item 11 refers to the following graph of population growth. Phase 4 of the graph is most likely due to, so in this case, on our growth curve, we have the x-axis, we have time, and on your y-axis, you have number of organisms, right? So this is for population size, but you can have a lot of different growth parameters, whether it be height, size of leaves, number of fruits, any different parameters that we could use to measure growth could be on your x-axis, but for populations, a population curve, it will have the number of organisms, right? So it says phase 4 of the graph is most likely due to, is going to be A, competition from invasive species, B, adequate food and space, C, a high natural birth rate, or D, disease resistance. So we have to look at the graph, what is happening in phase 4, what is the general trend that we observe? Is going to be A, competition from an invasive species. We're looking for a reason that would explain a decline in population size, right? Adequate food and space would allow the population to thrive. A high natural birth rate would increase the number of organisms, and disease resistance means that less will die from disease. So B, C, and D will all lead to an increase in population size rather than a decrease. So that would leave A as the best answer here. Item 12 refers to the following diagram of a plant cell. Which organelles are correctly matched to their function? So look at the cell and tell me what you think the best answer is here. So you have 1 and 2 organelle, 1 and 2, and which one is it releasing energy from respiration, controlling the activity of the cell, traps solar energy, stores nutrients? Those are the different options that you have there. So Sarah says C. So firstly, let's decide, what is 1 pointing to? Which organelle is 1? We have one person saying C in the chat. So 1, if I'm being honest with you guys, I absolutely hate this diagram, right? Because I feel like a number of students would get this question wrong, not necessarily because they don't know the functions of mitochondria and chloroplast, but it's not very clear, right? Miss, am I doing any for K Bio Unit 1? I had no intentions of, right? But we'll see. Now, the thing is, right, when you're looking, so there are basic characteristics of your mitochondria and your chloroplast. The mitochondria is a double membrane organelle. It has your outer membrane, and then you're going to have your inner membrane heavily folded to form cristae, right? So I think that is what they were trying to represent by this set of lines that they're doing here, right? So I would label 1 as your mitochondria. Your chloroplast is also a double membrane organelle, but the inner membrane is not full. So you see both membranes, inner, outer and inner membrane. And then you have a bunch of membranes to the inside called thylakoid membranes, where you actually have the chlorophyll that is important for photosynthesis, right? So that is what I think they're representing here. So I think 2 is really the chloroplast. So based on the characteristics of the organelles, none of the options actually fit, right? So the best answer here is C, right? That 1 traps solar energy and 2 releases energy during respiration. But I think that there's an error in the question because it should be reversed, right? So that should actually be the function for 2, and this should actually be the function for 1. But A, B, and C are entirely more wrong than C. So C is the best answer in this situation. But I think that there was an error in the question in its entirety. But why in the chat you understand how to identify? So more importantly, I want you to know how to identify the mitochondrium and chloroplast, what you're looking for to be able to decipher which is which, and 2, that what you would do in a situation if you meet a question that you believe that there to be an error. You're not going to leave it blank, right? But you put the best answer that you think it is, and you can even just let the invigilator know that you think that there's an error with the question. Why isn't it, chat? Which of the following comparisons of the cell wall and cell membrane is incorrect? Now, incorrect is going to be very important there, right? So we have that the cell wall is found only in plant cells, or that the cell membrane is found in both plant and animal cells, that the cell wall is freely permeable, the cell membrane is differentially permeable, the cell wall contains cellulose, or the cell membrane does not contain cellulose, that the cell wall is found in both plant and animal cells, while the cell membrane is found in animal cells only. Incorrect is going to be which option? Yes, there's going to be a lot of repeats, just like physics. It's going to be D, right? Your animal cells definitely do not have cell walls, and both your plant and animal cells will have cell membranes, right? Item 14, in multicellular organisms, cells become different from one another in order to carry out particular functions. This is called, is it selection, evolution, adaptation, or specialization? Cell specialization is when cells, they are assigned a particular function, and then they're going to acquire adaptations that make them well suited to their function, so that they're going to be able to contribute to the overall functioning of the organism, right? Which of the following statements best describe diffusion? Energy is required, a cell membrane is required, a concentration gradient is necessary, or it involves movement of water only. It's going to be C, right? Diffusion does not require a semi-permeable membrane, but a concentration gradient. It's always high to low or down a concentration gradient. So that is going to be the main requirement. Item 16 refers to the following diagrams which illustrate the result of an experiment. The process demonstrated in the diagrams above is responsible for. So we should firstly be able to tell what is being represented above. You have a drop of dye in one location in the beaker at the start of the experiment, and then 1 hour later, we're seeing that the dye is evenly distributed. What process is being represented here? Nobody? Is going to be diffusion. So once you highlight what the process is, oh, look at me not spelling diffusion correctly, right? Once you identify what the process is, then which of these options is water entering root cells, minerals entering root cells, starch entering phloem cells, or carbon dioxide entering leaf cells? Which of these are an example of diffusion? It's going to be D. 17, after absorption by the ileum, excess glucose is immediately converted into, is it going to be fat in liver and muscle cells, energy during cellular respiration, glycogen by the liver and muscles, or fat by the liver and stored under the skin? I can't speak for Chem. I don't know what's happening if the Chem teacher going live or not. So that's something to ask Mr. Springer about, right? But it's going to be C, is going to be converted to glycogen by your liver and muscle cells, right? Anybody can tell me what hormone is going to be responsible for that process happening? The conversion of glucose into glycogen. No, it's going to be insulin. Insulin causes glycogen formation. Glucagon is going to stimulate glycogen breakdown. Wise? Right, so be careful with that, right? So moving on to 18, anemia may be caused by a lack of, is it going to be iron and vitamin B, iodine and vitamin C, calcium and vitamin D, or phosphorus and vitamin A? Glucagon is the reverse, so glucagon will stimulate the breakdown of glycogen in order to try and raise your blood glucose levels. 18 is going to be A, iron and vitamin B. 19, which of the following organisms are autotrophs, right? Is it going to be cows, moles, humans, or seaweeds? So autotrophs, ability to make their own food. We're looking for producers. So that is going to be D, your seaweed. 20, which when starch is chemically digested in the mouth, the enzyme and product are, is it going to be salivary amylase or pancreatic amylase? And is the product maltose, glucose, or sucrose? Right? So we know both salivary amylase and pancreatic amylase will both break down starch into maltose, right? But they said digested in the mouth, so therefore we're going to be looking at salivary amylase, so that's going to be A or D. And then the product is definitely going to be maltose, not sucrose. So the answer for 20 is going to be A. So B was there to kind of confuffle you. Item 21 refers to the following diagram, which shows the cross-section of the leaf of a flowering plant, right? Photosynthesis mainly occurs in the area labeled, zoom out a little bit. It's going to happen mainly in the area labeled, we have one person saying B, yes. What layer is that? Labeled 2. I agree. It's B. Two is going to be your palisade mesophyll layer. One is the yes, Sarah Gail, your teacher taught you well. Who's the teacher, Gail? One is pointing to The silence. One is going to be the upper epidermis. And above that upper epidermis, we have the waxy cuticle being shown there, right? Layer 3 is what? The spongy mesophyll layer. And 4 would be your Four is going to be the lower epidermis, right? Right, you're also seeing you having your air space over here. You have your vascular bundle here. Right, this is showing you your phloem, your xylem. You have your guard cell. And the stoma, obviously, right? So you should be familiar with the entire, or be familiar with all of these structures in the cross-section of the leaf, because this question was asking you about the main layer for photosynthesis because of the regular rectangular cells that are tightly packed, that they have a lot of chloroplasts in them, that they have very large permanent vacuoles that will push all of the chloroplasts to the outside of the cell, maximizing interception of light. But so this question was about the main layer for photosynthesis, but it could bring back this same diagram and ask some other function. And you'd have to know the upper epidermis is going to be nice and transparent, allowing a lot of light to come in. The wax, it's also going to be responsible for producing the waxy cuticle that's going to lead to water conservation from above. The spongy mesophyll layer does help with photosynthesis, but the main function of the spongy mesophyll is for gaseous exchange, that you're going to be able to get the carbon dioxide needed for the process. Right, your lower epidermis is also going to be protective. You're going to have your specialized guard cells that open and close your stomata. And again, it also is going to facilitate the gases entering and exiting the leaf. So again, you should be familiar with the various structures in the cross-section of the leaf. Why is in the chat? We good with that? Oops. Item 22 refers to the following diagram of a respiratory structure. The respiratory structure shown above is, you have the, is it an alveolus? Is it a trachea? Is it a bronchiole? Or much less, is it a gill filament? It is definitely an alveolus. So this is the site of gaseous exchange within the lungs. So we know that we're going to have deoxygenated blood being brought here. We're going to have our carbon dioxide diffusing into the alveolus. You're going to have your oxygen diffusing out, right? And then you're going to have breathing facilitating or changing the air within the alveolus. And then we're going to have your reoxygenated blood being taken back to the heart for circulation, right? Item 23 refers to the following equation, which shows the oxidation of glucose in cells, right? So we have our C6H12O6 plus O2 to give you CO2 plus H2O, and it's showing you the release of energy, right? Very interesting that it's not a balanced equation, but you know, we are not marking them, they are marking us. But anyway, the energy released during this process is it converted to ADP, converted to ATP, stored in a high energy bond in ADP, or stored in a high energy bond in ATP? Yeah, so we know that we have to stick in some sixes here, right, for a balanced equation. But for 23, it's going to be D, right? The energy that we liberate, confuffling CSEC, it's D, right? So it's going to be D for 23, right? The energy from glucose is used to attach a third phosphate group to ADP. So the energy isn't converted into ADP or ATP, but ADP plus phosphate plus energy from glucose will give you ATP. So it's stored in a high energy bond in ATP. Why is in the chat we get that? Ends in the chat, not too clear. So not seeing any ends. Which of the following chemicals paralyzes cilium on the membranes and result in mucus accumulation in the lungs? Is it going to be tar, arsenic, nicotine, or carbon monoxide? Is going to be a tar, right? So you do get different versions of this question with different impacts of the components of cigarette smoke, right? So tar is going to be sticky and it does paralyze the cilia that is supposed to waft the mucus that may have dirt and bacteria up the respiratory tract and down the esophagus, right? But because the tar is present, the cilia cannot move and therefore you have the accumulation of that excess mucus. Item 25 refers to the following diagram, refers to the following diagram of a mammalian heart. In a patient with a certain defective heart condition, it was found that blood flowed from section 1 to section 2 of the diagram above. This was most likely due to a malfunction of, it's going to be A, the left atrium, B, the left ventricle, C, your bicuspid valve, or D, your semilunar valve. Right? So anytime we have backflow in the heart, it's going to be a valve issue, right? But because it's going to be showing you a backflow, so region 1 is your left ventricle, and region 2 is your left atrium, right? So that is separated by your bicuspid or your mitral valve. What's the name for the next atrioventricular valve separating the other two chambers? So the answer here is C. But what's the name of the other valve separating your right atrium and ventricle? That's going to be your tricuspid valve. And these here would be your semilunar valves, right? The one leaving the right atrium is going to be, which valve is that? Blood leaving the right ventricle, if I said the correct thing, right ventricle is going to be going where? Blood leaving the right ventricle is heading to the lungs. So that's going to be taken in the pulmonary artery. So this is going to be your pulmonary valve. And the blood leaving your left ventricle is going to be going all around the body. It's going to be going in the aorta. So this would be your aortic valve, right? So your pulmonary valve and your aortic valves are examples of semilunar valves, while your tricuspid valve and your bicuspid valve would be examples of your atrioventricular valves. Question 26. Which of the following is not a type of substance transported by the circulatory system of an animal? Is it A, solid undigested food, B, metabolic waste, C, respiratory gas, or D, digested food? We have, okay, everyone is saying A in the chat. It's going to be your solid undigested food, right? Solid undigested food remains within the small intestine. It remains within the ileum, is passed the large intestine or your colon and will be egested, right? So it never makes it into your circulatory system. So A is going to be the correct answer here. 27, the blood of a person suffering from a pathogenic disease differs from that of a healthy person by having a larger number of Is it going to be platelets, red blood cells, sugar molecules, or white blood cells? It's going to be D, right? If the person is suffering from a pathogenic disease is some microorganism has infected the person and is causing symptoms, right? Multiplying and causing symptoms. So therefore, your white blood cells as part of your immune response is going to be on the scene to try and surround, engulf, and destroy or produce antibodies specific to that particular pathogen, right? Item 28 refers to the following diagram, which shows an open stoma of a leaf. Which of the following changes occur when the plant is conserving water on a hot day? You have your guard cells. Are they going to be turgid or flaccid? Would the thin wall stretch or not be stretched, or would the stoma be open or closed? So if the plant is deciding to conserve water on a hot day, is the stoma going to be open or closed? Let's start there. We would want to close the stoma because we want to slow down the evaporation of that water vapor from coming out from the airspace, right? So we would definitely want to close the stoma. That leaves us with answers A or D. If it is that the plant is conserving water, the guard cells are not going to be turgid, they will actually be flaccid. And because it's flaccid, it means that the thin cell walls do not stretch. Therefore, the correct answer here is going to be D. #29, which of the following options correctly matches the storage organs to their stored nutrients? Right? So is it that we have, so you have the root, fruit, liver, and where do we have the storage of excess, well, not necessarily excess glucose, but storage of different nutrients in these different organs? So which one is showing you the correct combination there? Is going to be C, right? So you would have your excess glucose being stored as starch in the root. You're going to have it being stored as sucrose in the fruit. And glycogen is where your excess glucose is stored as in the liver, right? 30, a person whose kidneys have failed must undergo a process by which excretory materials are removed from the blood regularly. This is because excretory materials, do they raise your blood pressure? Do they make the blood dilute? If they are not getting rid of, they're not getting rid of by any other means, or would otherwise accumulate and poison the person. It's going to be D. So excretory products are produced from different metabolic reactions within the body, right? So it's the unintended products from beneficial, not my daddy calling me while I live. Yeah, I can't talk now, daddy. Yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah, your excretory products are produced from different metabolic reactions. These are the unintended products, right? So for example, the carrying out respiration. And respiration, you want to get the energy, you want to get the ATP, but you do not necessarily want the carbon dioxide. But if you have that carbon dioxide that is unintentionally being produced, building up within the body, it starts to slowly poison your body. For example, carbon dioxide dissolves in the water in plasma and starts to form carbonic acid. It throws off the pH of the blood, all sorts of things. So we want to get rid of it. If we don't, it would accumulate and slowly poison you. So as with a lot of your metabolic wastes, that is the issue. We need to get rid of it because it's toxic and accumulation would slowly poison you. Item 31, a student eats a highly salted snack and does not drink water. Which of the following describes and explains the urine most likely produced after a few hours? Is the type of urine going to be dilute, concentrated? Would you have ADH being released or not? And would water be reabsorbed by the kidney or not absorbed? So again, if the student eats a highly salted snack and does not drink water, it means that the student is likely going to be dehydrated, right? Or the water potential of the blood will be too low. So we need to get more water back into the blood, right? So if we're conserving water, we definitely want to produce more concentrated urine, i.e. we want less water to be in the urine, right? The release of ADH from your pituitary gland is what is going to stimulate that. So ADH being released, it tells the walls of your collecting duct to reabsorb more water. So therefore, there would be less water in your urine and the urine will be more concentrated. So that would make B the correct answer. Wise? Dyes in hardwood and tannins in the bark of trees are most likely products of, is it going to be photosynthesis, respiration, excretion, or auxins? So the issue with constipation would be another, yeah. You need more water, right? That would help that. For 32, it's going to be C, right? So dyes in your hardwood, tannins in your bark is ways in which your plants get rid of their metabolic waste. So that would be a form of excretion. 33, which of the following statements about the skeletal system are correct? It gives the body shape. It is made up of hard, non-living tissues, or it protects delicate organs such as the heart and the lungs. It's going to be B, right? That statement too, it is made up of hard, yes, non-living. Nope, that's not it, right? So any option with 2 is out, so that's going to leave B as the only correct answer, right? 33, we have 34. Locomotion is important to animals for, is it avoiding predators, acquiring food and shelter, or assimilating digested food? So locomotion is going to be movement with displacement, right? Why do we need to be able to move from one place to the next? Anybody could help Maria out in the chat there? So I'm seeing D as the correct answer for this question because I've seen the other question was B, right? Everyone is saying D in the chat. So yes, you want to be able to move from one place to the next. For example, if I see Doberman in the road, I am going to pelt, I'm going to run. That's probably not the best advice or like what you're supposed to do, but I get speed from running, right? From dogs in my childhood. Then acquiring food and shelter. Yes, we are not autotrophic. We have to get our food from other sources. So even if you can't make your own food, at least going to the fridge or going to the kitchen to access the food, you need to be able to move from one place to the next, right? You need to be able to seek shelter if rain is falling. You want to go, to better conditions, right? But assimilating digested food, that is where when your monosaccharides, your amino acids, your fatty acids and glycerol, once they're absorbed into the blood, once they get to your various cells, it's assimilation is how they're going to be used. Is it going to be used for respiration, for energy? Is it going to be used to make hormones or different structures within the cell? Is it going to be used to make the cell membranes or for long-term storage of energy? Assimilation is how we use the products of digestion of the digested macromolecules. However, you do not need to move from one place to the next, because some of you, as soon as you eat your lunch, you want to go and loll off somewhere, right? Lie down in one spot, which is probably not the best thing, but you do. So you don't necessarily need to move in order to assimilate digested food. So 3 is not, you don't need to be able to move from one place to a next to facilitate 3. So the correct answer here is actually going to be A, 1 and 2 only. So I didn't see anyone saying A in the chat. Why is in the chat if you understand why? So yes, but no. Item 35 refers to the following diagram of the arm and shoulder blade. Movement in the shoulder, elbow, and wrists are correctly described as movement in. So what is the range of movement that you're going to have? Tristan, you was going to say that? Yeah, yes, I know. It's be close. And that's the thing though with multiple choice, you know, they can't give you marks so where it was coming from. It's either right or wrong. That's the hard part about multiple choice, right? So this question is asking you about range of motion at these 3 joints: your shoulder joint, elbow joint, wrist joint. Yes, Tristan, we got this right by reviewing as much papers as we can. You guys are going to be good. The answer for this question is going to be B, right? Your shoulder joint is a ball and socket joint. You're going to have movement in all 3 planes, right? So you're going to have the widest range of motion in your shoulder joint. Then your elbow is a hinge joint, right? So it's only going to be allowing movement in one plane. And then when it comes to your wrist joint, so again, you could just go through it. With your wrist joint, you have motion in 3 planes. It's not a hinge joint. You could move in all directions as well. So the correct answer here is going to be B. 36. Sashrin's speech is slurred. I swear that's a tongue twister. It was not meant to be read aloud, guys. Sashrin's speech is slurred because he drank too much alcohol. Which of the labeled regions of the brain is affected by alcohol? Sashrin would not have been able to read that question if he had alcohol, right? So which of the labeled regions is affected by the alcohol? So the answer is you're going to have various regions of the brain are affected by alcohol, right? But the parts of the brain that is going to be affecting his speech would definitely be his cerebrum, right? So it's going to be A. Now, this question also has an error in it because C is pointing to that structure as the cerebellum and D is pointing to that structure as the medulla oblongata. But in reality, this is actually the medulla. And this is the cerebellum. But you know, guys, as I said, we not marking CXC, CXC marking us, right? Item 37 refers to the following diagram, which shows a reflex action. Which labeled structure is the effector? Is it going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4? So we're seeing that the effector here is C, right? Which is, in this case, going to be a muscle, right? So while we're here and we have the diagram, let's review the entire reflex arc. So you're going to have a stimulus. You're going to have a change in the environment, and that stimulus is going to be detected by So they're just saying, Miss, do we need to review? Paper 2 is gone, right? So let's just learn off the answers. Why focus on the information behind the question? The reason why I'm doing this is such. If they bring this same diagram, right? And then they ask you, which label structure is the sensory neuron? Do you know the correct answer? So yes, if the exact question comes back, you just need to know that the answer is C or 3. But if the question is modified, then 3 will not be the correct answer anymore, right? And then that's a mark you could easily lose. So preparation here is going to be, you need to understand why the answer is the answer and how this question could be modified to ask something else. So that's why in the exam, every single question, you're going to reread. Every single question. Even if you feel a sense of deja vu, like you've seen that question before, you're still going to read it again. You have the time. Read the question because it could be a slightly modified question. Right? So you have a stimulus, which is a change in the environment that is detected by 1. 1 is going to be the receptor. Right? Then that is going to send an electrical impulse via 4, which is going to be your sensory neuron. That will take it to the CNS. In this case, is going to be the spinal cord, right? 2 is what? 2 being found within the spinal cord, being found within the relay neuron. 2 is the relay or interneuron. Right? And then you're going to have electrical impulses being sent via your motor neuron to your 3, which is your effector, which in this case is the muscle. Right? So the reason why I'm going through teaching around the question is in case the question is modified, or if there's a new question that you've never seen before, you would still know what the correct answer is. Right? Item 38 refers to the following actions: bending of shoots towards light, rolling up of a millipede when touched, or withdrawal of an earthworm into its burrow when touched. All of the actions are examples of, is it examples of stimuli, responses, locomotion, or growth movements? It's going to be B, responses, right? Karen says he just won't repeat questions like physics. Well, it would be nice, but we have to be prepared. You know, you never know if your year is the year. Have a fresh batch, right? If it's up to me, I hope that the entire paper is a strong sense of deja vu, but that mightn't be the case, right? So we need to be prepared either way. 39, a girl smells a hamburger and salivates. Which of the following is the effector which brings about her response? Is the smell of the food the effector? Is the salivary glands the effector? Is the cells in the nose the effector? Or is the secretion of saliva going to be the effector? So the correct answer here is, I'm not too sure if that's the answer from 38 or if you're saying B for 39. I wasn't paying attention. But it is, the answer for 39 is also going to be B, right? Your effectors are always muscles or glands, right? So your salivary gland is going to be your effector. The smell of the food is what? The smell of the food is? The stimulus. The cells in the nose would be the? Those would be your receptors. And the secretion of saliva would be the secretion of the saliva is going to be the response. The effector is the salivary glands, but the secretion of the saliva is the response. It is the action of the effector. Item 40 refers to the following diagram of an eye, which shows nearsightedness, right? So with nearsightedness, you have the image being formed in front of the retina. Which of the following shows how the defect can be corrected? So how could we get the image to form on the retina instead of in front of it? We're going to need diverging lens. So how you remember, if it falls short, it's short-sightedness. Yes, that's a good way of remembering it, right? So we're going to need diverging lens, which are going to allow it to meet at a further point and meet on the retina rather than in front of it. So the answer here is going to be A. Item 41, so definitely review that one because they like to, the settings for accommodation, you have to be good with that, right? So in the cotyledon of a red bean, which factor is not a requirement of the breakdown of stored food during germination? So the breakdown of stored food is definitely going to need your enzymes. Water is necessary for germination to activate your enzymes to be able to break down. The enzymes are what are going to be breaking down the stored foods in the cotyledon to be able to have the embryo be able to grow, right? So you need enzymes, and then enzymes require a certain temperature. So it's going to be warmed. You need so therefore you're going to, what you need oxygen. What you don't need is light, because you're going to need respiration for energy happening, right? But you don't need light. Item 42 is based on the following graph, which shows the height of some students in a class, right? Which labeled portion of the graph represents the unusually short students? Why isn't it chat if you would fall into that region of the graph? Would unusually short be the term used to describe you? So this curve is showing a normal distribution, right? So here you're going to have the, that's not realize the pointer wasn't there. Here you're going to have the, so this is the range of heights. On your x-axis, you will go from the lowest height to the highest of heights, right? So the shorter heights would be in this region, average in the middle, and tallest would be to the right, right? So your unusually short students would be in region A of the graph. Why isn't it, chat? Item 43 refers to the following diagram, which shows a section through the testis, right? The part labeled 1 is the part labeled 1 is the we have one answer saying D in the chat. That first core region there, that is going to be your epididymis. The answer is A. 1 is the epididymis. 2 is the seminiferous tubules where sperm is going to be made. 3 is going to be the scrotal sac, not an option here, right? The scrotum or your scrotal sac. And 4 is going to be your sperm duct or your vas deferens. Right? The prostate gland is not being shown here. Item 44, pollen grains, which are small, light, and odorless and smooth, are most likely transferred by, is it going to be water, birds, wind, or insects? It's going to be C, wind. "45, when an okra fruit becomes dry, it splits open along several lines of weakness in its structure. This adaptation is suited for, is it attracting insects, scattering the seeds, germinating the seeds, or making food available to the animals?" It's going to be how the seeds are scattered. So that's how the pericarp is adapted for scattering the seeds. Item 46 refers to the following diagrams of specialized cells. Which of the following structures is common to both cells? They both have nuclei. Which of the following is the correct sequence for seed formation after fertilization? Is it ovule, zygote, embryo, seed, ovule, embryo, seed, zygote, embryo, ovule, zygote, seed, embryo, zygote, ovule, seed? It's going to be A. You have your ovule first, then you have fertilization forming a zygote, then you're going to have development of your embryo, and eventually the seed. So 47 is A. 48, one method of controlling the population of mosquitoes is by getting rid of all stagnant water. Which stages of the life cycle does this method control? So they're asking you which stages in the life cycle of a mosquito is going to be important or require water. right? So all of the stages in the life cycle of the mosquito will require water except the adult stage, right? So any option with adult is going to be out. So the only correct answer here is going to be B, right? A farmer's crop is infected by a disease-causing organism and he is unable to harvest most of the crop. Hard luck there, dog, right? Which of the following is an environmental implication as a result of this? Do we have loss of crop, loss of productivity, loss of income and profit, and risk of spread of the disease to nearby farmers' crops? Right? So A, B, and C, they're all legit consequences, but we're looking for an environmental consequence, right? Which is going to be D, the risk of spread. Right? Others would be economic. $50. Yeah, so that's why they put environmental there in bold. Environmental implications. So others are not wrong, but you have to go with specifically environmental. Which of the following are consequences of plant or human disease? You have loss of productivity, decrease in food prices, or larger part of the national budget used to buy medications. So which of these options, 1, 2, and 3, is it 1 and 2 only, 1 and 3 only, 2 and 3 only, or 1, 2, and 3? The agri students smiling right now. They were smiling in the paper too as well. Right? It is going to be, the correct answer here is going to be B. No way, no how. No way, no how. Right? Will disease lead to a decrease in food prices? Right? All of these things are going to lead to an increase in food prices. So any option with 2 is out. Yeah? Because if you have shortage of a particular crop, it's going to lead to scarcity, and scarcity, if it's harder to come by, people are going to charge more for it. That's why one time you could go to the market and you're paying $25 for 1 pound of tomatoes versus going to the market and you're getting 4 or 5 pounds for $20. It is all based on availability. Scarcity drives prices up. Two alleles of a gene are situated at, is it the same locus on homologous pair of chromosomes at different loci on a homologous pair of chromosomes? The same locus on different homologous pairs of chromosomes, or different loci on different homologous pairs of chromosomes? $51. So we're unsure with this one. We have someone saying C, right? So alleles are different forms of the same gene, right? On homologous pairs of chromosomes, the same gene is going to be found in the same position on that gene or in the same locus. The locus is the position of a gene on the chromosome. So the correct answer here is going to be A. C, you're going to have the same genes. It is the same locus. So we have the first part right with C, but they said on different homologous pairs of chromosomes. Homologous pairs will have the gene in the same position. Non-homologous chromosomes will have different genes on those chromosomes, right? So it's going to be found on the same position for a homologous pair. Different chromosomes will have different genes. So the correct answer here is A and not C. The gene for coat color in cattle shows incomplete dominance. A purebred cow with red coat mates with a purebred bull with white coat. All of the offspring have roan coats. Which of the following would represent the genotype of the offspring Says, I need to stop overthinking because I was going to put that and I saw other people see something else. The good part about it, Tristan, is that in the exam, you will not see what other people put, so you will go with your instinct, right? That's basically what you said, Deja. So, incomplete dominance means what? So this question is problematic, yeah? It's problematic because incomplete dominance means a blend of the phenotype. Rowan is co-dominance, right? So there's also an error in this question, right? However, the Rowan coat is going to be the heterozygote, right? So that means the heterozygote is going to have one of each type of allele. So it's going to have one allele for red coat and one allele for white coat, and creating that heterozygote, you would have Rowan coats is red and white coats, right? So the correct answer here is going to be B. You need to have two different alleles. Why isn't it, Chad? You just go blind and just put A and B and thing. No. We can't be risking our marks like that. Why isn't it, Chad? We understand why B is the correct answer? That should be codominance, though. Which of the following about meiosis is not true? Mixing of gene, it went in down choose C. If you chose C, Deja, you'd have been wrong, eh? You'd have been wrong. Which of the following about meiosis is not true? Paying attention to those capital letters there. Mixing of genes occurs, produces 4 daughter cells, occurs only in sex organs, or chromosome number is maintained. It's going to be D. A very, 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 very important, a very, very, very important part of this, of meiosis is the halving of the number of chromosomes, right? So when the zygote forms, you have restoration of the chromosome number. Yeah? Which of the following features of cell division refers to mitosis? Is it essential for a variety within a species? It results in a haploid number of chromosomes. It takes place in reproductive structures. Or D, the amount of genetic material in the cell remains the same. Miss will be sending it in the 12. I could. Just remind me if you don't see it, like within half an hour of the live, right? So 54. The amount of genetic material in the cell remains the same. Mitosis is your photocopying machine, right? So whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. So D, yeah, is going to be it. 55. Albinism is caused by a single recessive allele. 2 normal parents can have an albino child. This is because, is it that both parents were heterozygous for the gene, that both parents were homozygous recessive for the gene, that one parent was homozygous dominant for the trait and the other heterozygous, or that one parent was homozygous dominant for the trait and the other homozygous recessive? Here it would be that both parents have to be heterozygous for the gene. For them to be normal, they each need to have a dominant allele, but for them to have an albino child, they do need to also be carriers of that recessive allele. So they are carriers for it, but they don't express the condition, but they can have a child inheriting both the recessive copies and therefore expressing the condition. Right? So just to recap there, homozygous means having 2 of the same alleles. Heterozygous means having different alleles. And recessive, there would be the trait or the characteristic that is only expressed in the absence of a dominant allele. So to be albino, you can only have recessive alleles and no dominant alleles. So that's what the albino child will need to get from each of the parents. One example of a sex-linked disease, is it cancer, hypertension, color blindness, or Down syndrome? It is going to be C, color blindness. So sex-linked conditions are when the affected gene is found on one of the sex chromosomes, mainly your X chromosome, and color blindness is a common example, right? 57, two goats heterozygous for fast growth rate are crossbred. The percentage of the F1 population most likely to possess homozygous alleles is it's going to be C, 50%, right? So they said homozygous alleles. You could be homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive. So that's why it's going to be 50% and not 25%. 58, which of the following describes a group of closely related organisms that are able to interbreed and to produce fertile offspring? That's going to be B, the species, right? So when defining a species, they must be able to interbreed, and that fertile there is going to be very important. Natural selection may be described as, is it A, process by which a community retains those genes which makes it adapted for its habitat? B, technique by which a pioneer species retains those genes which makes it adapted for its habitat? Process by which an organism retains those genes which makes it adapted for its environment, or the technique by which selected organisms retain those genes which makes it adapted for its environment. 59. It's going to be C. It's the process by which an organism retains those genes which makes it adapted for its environment. Survival of the fittest. It's C. Right? Best suited for the environment. It is go drink some water. Yeah, I'm fighting this flu here, guys. 60, which of the following does not apply to genetic engineering? Is it that it's used for the treating of genetic diseases, produces higher yielding crops, determining the parentage of a child, or producing hormones and proteins? Miss has a pathogen. I do. The pathogen got me. So genetic engineering is not used for determining who the baby daddy is, right? Determining the parentage of a child. It's not going to be C. Where my lymphocytes at? Guys, in that last week of those 12-hour crash courses, I had 3 12-hour crash courses, right? 3. 2 of which I taught by myself. Your girl was fighting for dear life. My body was all the way down at the end of that week. So, yeah, the pathogen had you get a chance to set in there. But my lymphocytes are fighting. I'm much better now than I was. So the lymphocytes, they're catching on, man. They're catching on. So pretty soon I'll be over it. Right? So that brings us to question 60 and the end of that paper. Why isn't the chat? You good? Yeah? So as you guys look at your own papers and you go through your own review, you have to remember not only why the answer for the correct answer for the question, but also why the answer is the answer. That's going to be very important for you in being able to determine if they bring new questions, you're able to adapt to that as well, right? Let's do this paper here. I'll do one more paper before we call it a day, right? So we should be able to get through this paper a lot faster because, you know, deja vu. Yeah? Why shouldn't I be good and be ready to move on to our next paper? Right, so I don't see the answers for question one already, so I guess you're ready. So which of the following features is used to classify a group of organisms as class and sector? It's going to be a number of, right, so a number of segments. Which of the following options correctly defines a niche and a habitat? Right, so look through those options there and let me know. Yes, I love your name, Deja. So niche is going to be the role that an organism plays in the habitat, while the habitat is going to be the place where an organism lives. So that's going to be A. Nice. 3. Living organisms such as plants are affected by abiotic factors which determine where they become established. So this is deja vu, right? Which of the following option lists of, which of the following option lists some of these determining factors? Kieran says, where is Chem? I do not know the answer for Chem. Let me message and find out if there is a Chem live and what time. I could only talk for bio. Yeah, but the correct answer for this one is going to be B, sunlight availability, soil pH, and minerals. We're looking for abiotic or non-living factors. Which of the following organisms are most important for biodegradation? Is it going to be bacteria, vultures, omnivores, or earthworms? It's going to be A, bacteria. You're looking for your decomposers, which will mainly be a bacteria and fungi. A farmer notices pink mealybugs in his garden. He's advised to introduce the ladybird beetle to control the mealybugs. The type of relationship between the mealybug and the ladybug beetle is described as, this is deja vu again, B, your predator prey. Which of the following statements about recycling manufactured materials are true? 1, less energy is used in the manufacturing of new products by using the raw materials from recycled products. 2, some manufactured products can be recycled. 3, recycling of some non-biodegradable materials prevents landfill sites from filling up too quickly for a long time. So this one is looking like D, 1, 2, and 3, all benefits. 7, approximately 10% of energy stored in food is available to the next organism in a food chain because it's that most of the energy is lost as heat during the process of respiration, and most of the energy is lost during the process of excretion, that there are fewer consumers than producers in a food chain, or that many consumers compete for the same food resource. It's going to be A, right? Most of the energy is going to be lost via respiration, some from excretion, but the majority is going to be excretion. Third is going to be respiration. Which of the following materials is considered to be non-biodegradable? It's not going to just be broken down naturally. You have grass cutting, sardine can, newspaper, and cloth. 8 is going to be B. That sardine can going to be there for a while. 9, replanting trees on a bare hillside is an example of. It's going to be C, reforestation and restoration. Yeah. 10, the greatest threat to the survival of coral reefs, is going to be increased dissolved oxygen levels, increased ocean temperatures, decreased greenhouse gases, or decreased nitrogen levels. Child, it's going to be B, those increased temperatures, right? The warming of the Earth's surface and warming of the water by extension. And the rate at which you're moving, we could do a next paper. I do have a third one prepared, but it's about an hour and a half we're looking to go for. So I feel like 2 papers would be good, right? Because they are sensitive to temperature. Yes. Item 11 refers to the following graph of population growth. Phase 4 of the graph, phase 4 of the graph of population. Sorry. I'm trying to read and think at the same time. Phase 4 of the graph of population growth is most likely due to, is it A, competition from an invasive species, B, adequate food and space, C, a high natural birth rate, or D, disease resistance? Again, deja vu. Am I doing HSB? It was not the intention either for today, but if we have enough demand, we could see, right? So it's going to be competition from an invasive species. We're looking for what is going to result in a decrease in population size, right? All these lead to an increase, deja vu. When compared to a cheek cell, a muscle cell contains more. Is it going to be vacuoles, ribosomes, mitochondria, or chromosomes? Yeah, y'all want me to spend the whole day on the live. I think other teachers have to come in on the live for other subjects. So for 12, it's going to be C, mitochondria. Your muscle cell is going to be a lot more metabolic than your cheek cell. It's going to need a larger amount of ATP. So it's therefore going to need the organelle responsible for that process, more of those, right? Larger and more numerous mitochondria. 13 refers to the diagram of a cell. Which of the labeled structures is responsible for controlling cellular activities? Is going to be D. D is 4, yeah. And D is, what organelle is D? The name of that organelle that controls cellular activities. That's going to be the nucleus, right? 3 is pointing to what? Three is going to be the vacuole, your large ruminant vacuole. 2 is pointing to? So we just went through in the last paper how to tell the difference between these two organelles. Two is your chloroplast. I told you for your chloroplast, they like to represent the thylakoid membranes that contain your chlorophyll. So you'll see lines inside of that one, right? One is going to be a mitochondria because they're showing you the various cristae. You have your outer membrane and your inner membrane folding to form the cristae. So they usually find some way of representing the cristae for you to be able to tell the difference between the two. Wise, we good with distinguishing between these two? Item 14 refers to the following diagrams, which show a process by which substances are moved into and out of cells, right? Let me zoom out here so we can get some of the options. Which of the following options correctly identifies and describes the process occurring above? So we see a semi-permeable membrane, we see sugar molecules, we see water molecules, and we have changing water levels. So that is going to be osmosis. And osmosis, and it's showing you water moving from dilute solution to a concentrated solution. Yes, so we're looking at the number of sugar molecules will tell you that on this side we have the more dilute. And this side we have the more concentrated. And the fact that we have the movement of water from right to left, the correct answer here is going to be B. Why isn't it, chat? It's not going to be D because osmosis is the movement of water molecules only, right? So D has sugar moving from concentrated to dilute, right? The semi-permeable membrane is what is going to be preventing the sugar molecules from being able to move. Which of the following functions is not correctly matched to the organelle? They should have specified which membrane that they're talking about. Yes, but definitely the best answer here, or what is definitely wrong, is that the chloroplast is not involved in protein synthesis. So we can definitely be comfortable with B being the most correct answer, right? Item 16 refers to the following diagram, which shows a xylem vessel. The major feature that is responsible for the rigid structure of the xylem vessel is the going to be A, the lignification of the cell wall, the depositing of lignin in the cell wall is what is going to allow the rigid structure and allow the xylem to provide the plant with support. 17, which of the following features does not enhance a leaf's ability to absorb solar energy? Is it large surface area, B, transparent cuticle, presence of a vascular bundle, or D, presence of numerous chloroplasts in the palisade cells? 17 is going to be C. Nice. Item 18 refers to the following diagram, which represents a metabolic process carried out in plants, right? The food produced is going to be fat, glucose, protein, or amino acid. B, glucose, right? So the process being represented there is photosynthesis. Item 19 refers to the following graph of rate of photosynthesis versus light intensity. Which of the following statements best accounts for the shape of the graph, right? Still have to zoom out some more. Long question, boy. Right? So is it as photosynthesis rates increase, there's going to be a decrease in carbon dioxide concentration. As light intensity increases, the rate of photosynthesis also increases until a stationary phase exists when denaturation of the enzyme occurs. As carbon dioxide levels gradually increase, there is a similar increase in the rate of photosynthesis until a plateau phase exists when no further increase in carbon dioxide results in any further increase in photosynthesis. Or D, as light intensity increases, there is an increase in photosynthesis until there is no further increase in the rate due to some other limiting factor. So it's going to be D. Yep. So we're seeing the first part of the curve here. As light intensity increases, the photosynthetic rate is also increasing until some other factor becomes the limiting factor here, right? It's not, a lot of people want to choose C, but here carbon dioxide is a fixed level, right? It's 0.03%. Yeah, it is be real sucky because remember all the questions, all 60 questions is still 60 marks, right? Some of them questions you have to do too much reading and working for the same 1 mark as other very easy, straightforward ones, right? 20. So your carbon dioxide levels are fixed, right? So that's why it's not C. Which of the following organisms is a saprophyte? Is it going to be bread mold, mango tree, amoeba, or the cat? Kieran says skip and come back. Yes, it's definitely going to be A. Right? An enzyme is best defined as a molecule which, does it increase the rate of a chemical reaction? Does it decrease the rate of a chemical reaction? Does it decrease the rate of chemical reaction but remains unchanged at the end of the reaction? Or increases the rate of a chemical reaction but remains unchanged at the end of the reaction? They put a cat no? Yes, they did put a cat. So it's going to be increase the rate of a chemical reaction but remains unchanged at the end of the reaction, right? They said best. Item 22 refers to the following equation, which shows the oxidation of glucose in cells. Deja vu. The energy released from the process above is D, stored in a high energy bonding, ATP. Item 23 refers to the following diagram of a respiratory structure. Deja vu. Again, the respiratory structure shown above is that of an A, alveolus. 24. Which of the following is an effect of carbon monoxide found in cigarette smoke? Is it increased heart rate, increased beating of cilia, reduced oxygen transport by the blood, increased mucus production in cells lining the respiratory passageway? This one is going to be C. So it's a question testing the same knowledge, but different from the previous paper. But carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin better or more strongly than oxygen. So it's going to reduce the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. Why is it difficult to develop a vaccine for the common cold? Is it that vaccines cannot be developed for viruses, that the antigens on the common cold remains the same, that the antigens on the common cold virus change frequently, or that human beings cannot produce antibodies for the common cold? It's going to be C. In heart bypass surgery, an artery is advantageous over a vein to bypass the blockage because, is it that arteries have thicker, more muscular walls than veins, that veins allow blood to flow in one direction, that arteries carry blood away from the heart, or that veins carry deoxygenated blood only? It's going to be A. Arteries have thicker, more muscular walls than your veins. Which of the following options best identify some of the transport substances in animals? Is it amino acids, hormones, glucose? '27 is going to be all three, right? You have amino acids, hormones, and glucose being transported. In some versions of that question, you will see 3 as sucrose instead. So pay attention. In the transport of solutes in the phloem, the source is defined as any area of the plant where, is it water is taken out of the phloem, water is loaded into the phloem, sucrose is loaded into the phloem, or sucrose is taken out of the phloem? See, where you have phloem loading occurring, sucrose is loaded into the phloem. Under which condition will the rate of transpiration in plants be the highest? Is it sunny and low wind speed, sunny and high wind speed, cloudy and low wind speed, or cloudy and high wind speed? B, sunny and high wind speed. To the effect of temperature and wind. Item 30 refers to the following diagram of a mammalian kidney nephron. Which option correctly relates the processes occurring in 1, 2, and 3? So for number 30, we have everyone saying B. So 1 is pointing to what structure? One is pointing to the Bowman's capsule. 2 is pointing to the proximal convoluted tubule, or your PCT, and 3 is pointing to the loop of Henle, right? So let's see. In the Bowman's capsule, we should have ultrafiltration occurring. In the proximal convoluted tubule, you're going to have selective reabsorption to get a lot of the beneficial stuff out of that filtrate and back into the blood. And then 3, your loop of Henle is adapted for water conservation. So I agree that B is the correct answer here. Right? The other regions here that they didn't label, you have your DCT, or your distal convoluted tubule. You have your collecting duct, which is receiving filtrate from many nephrons. And that is the one that is going to be under the influence of ADH. The best description of the role of excretion in living organisms is to produce urine, to produce feces, to get rid of toxic waste, or to get rid of excess water. C, to get rid of your toxic waste. Your metabolic waste would be toxic waste. Which of the following is not a form of excretion in plants? Carbon dioxide diffusing in through the stomata, substances being stored in the bark of a tree, water vapor diffusing out through the epidermis, or that the calcium oxide crystals being stored in the leaves during leaf fall. It's going to be A, carbon dioxide coming in. It's not excretion. That's how it accesses one of the raw materials for photosynthesis. Right? 33, which of the following correctly describes movements in plants? Growth movements, part movements, whole body movements. B, 1 and 2 only. 34, in humans, the skeletal system performs a variety of functions, including blood cell formation, hormone formation, immune response, or mastication. A, blood cell formation. 35, locomotion is important to animals for, we have avoiding predators, acquiring food and shelter, and for reproduction. D, all 3. 36 refers to the following diagrams illustrating an experiment. After a few days, the tallest shoot would most likely be, is it the one with the foil cap, the one with the tip removed, the regular one, or one with a transparent cap over the top? It's going to be A, right? The foil cap is going to be blocking light, and therefore you're going to have that rapid set of growth or attenuation occurring as the shoot is searching for light. Which of the following options best describes the terms stimulus and response? You want to read through those options there? It's looking like a lot. Right? So your stimulus is going to be a detectable change in an organism's environment, and the response is going to be the reaction of the organism, right? That's going to be the contraction of a muscle or the release of hormones from a gland. Oops. Item 38 refers to the following diagram of a spinal reflex. The numbered structures are for 1, 2, and 3. So you see why it's important to know all the different factors. Deja, was it? So we have your receptor. We're going to have the receptor in the skin of the hand. We're going to need a sensory neuron, which is 2. All right, you're saying C, right? Taking the impulses to the CNS. We're going to have your interneuron or relay neuron, which is 3. And then your motor neuron and taking the impulse to the effector, which is the biceps. So I agree to the 8 is going to be C. To the 9, the role of an effector is to detect a stimulus, to respond to a stimulus, to create a nerve impulse, or to relay a nerve impulse. B, to respond to a stimulus. Nice. 40. Item 40 refers to the following diagram of an eye which shows nearsightedness. Which of the following shows how the defect can be corrected? Deja vu. A. The following statements describe the processes taking place within a seed during germination. We have the embryo uses food to develop the radicle and the plumule. The enzymes break down proteins into amino acids, or that soluble products move into the embryo. Which of the following correctly identifies the sequence of events during the germination of a seed? D, we're going to have the enzymes breaking down the proteins into amino acids, the soluble products moving into the embryo, and then the embryo is going to be able to use or assimilate that to develop the radicle and the plumule. So that's going to be D. 42, which of the following, refers to the following graph, which illustrates a measurement of growth in living organisms. Which of the following is an incorrect label for the y-axis? Would it be mass, length, units of time, or number of leaves? You have to always have time on your x-axis, right? So on your y-axis, you could never have time. But mass, length, number of leaves are all different and appropriate growth parameters that you can use on your y. Item 43 refers to the following activities involved in the menstrual cycle. You have repair of the uterine lining, ovulation, shedding of the uterine lining, and development of the Graafian follicle. What is the order in which you're going to have these things happening? So we seem to be between C and D. So let's see what C is saying. That 4, we have development of the Graafian follicle. Then we would have repair of the uterine lining. 2, then we would have ovulation. And then if it's not fertilized, we would have shedding of the uterine lining. So I agree with C. Let me just double check. D, different follicle, then shedding, no. 2 would be ovulation. You had to have the Graafian follicle before. All right, so no, C, right? Why isn't it chat? Yeah. 44. Item 44 refers to the following diagram of flowers from 2 different types of plants. Which of the following statements is true for both flowers? Is it that both are wind pollinated, that petals are absent from both 1 and 2, that both are pollinated by a hummingbird, or that 1 is pollinated by the wind and 2 is pollinated by a hummingbird? 44 is going to be D, right? 1 is giving gangly, it's giving feathery stigmas, it's giving dangling anthers, right? But 1 is giving, cute, petals, a landing pad for insects or for the hummingbird. It's going to be producing that nectar to produce a reward. So we're going to go with D, right? (45) Which of the following shows the correct order for seed formation after fertilization? This is giving deja vu, but just make sure the options are correct. You're going to have. I couldn't even tell you, Gigi. I couldn't even tell you. It's going to be A, you have your ovule first, then your zygote, then the embryo, then the seed. 46, which of the following diagram refers to following diagrams of specialized cells? Which of the following structures is common to both cells? So this question, we saw a similar question, but the options are slightly different, but the correct answer is still the correct answer, which is B, nucleus. 47, which of the following forms of birth control is most likely to be 100% effective? Is it going to be the condom, diaphragm, tubal ligation, or birth control pill? (47) is C, tubal ligation. We're about that permanent form of contraception. 48, a vector is defined as an organism that bites humans, causes disease, lives on other organisms, or transmits disease organisms. So there is the diaphragm. It also refers as the cap that is placed over the cervix. So for 48, it's going to be D. 49, a 60-year-old man has been diagnosed with hypertension as well as diabetes. Which of the following treatments will be most effective for the management of both diseases? Would it be exercising and lowering the intake of salt and refined carbs, spending more time relaxing, again, old man, starting a rigorous exercise program, or taking insulin injections? It's going to be A. For most of your lifestyle diseases, it's going to be that diet and exercise you want to go for. Item 50 refers to the following diagram, which shows the life cycle of a vector. At which stage is this vector easily controlled by the use of aerosol insecticides? So similar question, but asking the opposite now. It's going to be D. We're looking for at the adult stage, right? So we have egg, then larvae, then pupae, then adult, right? And 1, 2, and 3, aquatic, but 4 is going to be in air. So therefore, that would be most effective for your aerosol insecticides. 51, which of the following options best describes a chromosome? Is it two forms of the same gene, structure made up of DNA wrapped around histone proteins, nucleic acid that contains all the genetic information, or part of the DNA which carries genetic information to produce a protein? 51 is going to be B, right? A is describing what? Two forms of the same gene is an allele, nucleic acid that contains all genetic information. That's DNA. And a part of the DNA which carries genetic information to produce a protein. That's going to be a gene, right? So the correct answer here is B, but we're just checking the rest. If a diploid organism has two different alleles for the same gene, it is described as being, is it heterozygous, homozygous, dominant, or recessive? So for 52, it's going to be A. Having two different alleles would be heterozygous. Homo means same, right? If they have two of the same alleles, it would be homozygous, but they said two different alleles. So A is going to be the correct answer for 52, right? 53. Which of the following statements about meiosis is not true? It allows for genetic variation. It results in the production of gametes. It doubles the number of chromosomes in gamete, or it causes haploid cells to form from diploid cells. I love genetics too. 53 is going to be C, not true. It does not double the number of chromosomes, but rather halves the number of chromosomes. Tarzan 54. Tarzan and Jane are heterozygous for blood groups A and B respectively. Which of the following shows all the possible results of their genetic cross? So if they're heterozygous for A, that means Tarzan is AO and Jane is BO, right? So when you work out all possibilities, you would have A, B, AB, and O. So D is going to be the correct answer for 54. I'm always sad when the genetics question doesn't come. But for some of you, you rejoice. 55, as a result of mitosis, each daughter cell has a variable number of chromosomes, twice the number of chromosomes as the parent cell, the same number of chromosomes as the parent cell, or half the number of chromosomes as the parent cell. Yeah, 54 pops up a lot. 55 is going to be C, mitosis being the photocopying machine. Exactly what you put in is what you get out. 56, one example of a sex-linked disease is deja vu. C. 57, variation in a population is due to, is it mutation, crossing over, asexual reproduction? Is it 1 and 2 only, 1 and 3 only, 2 and 3 only, or 1, 2 and 3? So for 57, you can't have, so mutation does lead to variation, crossing over, reshuffles existing alleles does lead to variation, asexual reproduction produces identical clones. So any option with 3 is wrong. So C and D are out. So it's going to be B, C, and D are out. So that's going to leave A as the correct answer. 58, a species consists of members that occupy the same habitat, reproduce by asexual means, interbreed under natural conditions, or interbreed to produce fertile offspring. 58 is going to be D. 59, which of the following descriptions is true for natural and artificial selection? So natural selection is about survival of the fittest, best suited for the environment, whereas artificial selection is the selection of organisms based on characteristics important to humans. So the best combination that we're going to have here is what? I'm seeing C, that natural selection produces great biological diversity, whereas artificial selection produces very different organisms from natural populations. So yes, C is artificial selection is best suited for man. That's economically important, but it is not necessarily going to be able to survive in the wild. And to end us off on this second paper, item 60, nothing like a little genetic engineering question. Item 60 refers to the following diagram, which shows stages 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the production of insulin by genetic engineering. In which of the stages above can insulin be produced by the bacterium? Is it going to be in 1, 2, 3, or 4? It's going to be in 4. Right, so this question is very easy, but basically using genetic engineering to produce insulin. HSB and bio are very similar. So even people preparing for your HSB paper 1 could have fell in on this live and gotten a lot of review on the material as well. Questions may not necessarily repeat, but if you can answer these questions, you'll be able to answer questions that come on your paper as well. There's a lot of overlap, but you will find a lot of questions in your HSB paper that will not land up on the bio paper. With genetic engineering, you want to select your human insulin gene, right? You want to cut that out. You want to insert it into a plasmid, bacterial plasmid, to form a recombinant plasmid. And then you want to get that recombinant plasmid into your bacteria via transformation, so that now you have the human insulin gene in the bacterium. So as it is grown and cultured, it will also start producing human insulin and therefore be able to meet the needs for your diabetic patients, right? So that brings us to the end of our second paper and brings us to the 2-hour mark on this live, right? So that is going to be it from me, guys. I hope that you found this session beneficial, helpful. That's why I'm going to say, I'm going to sign off and say goodbye. All the best in your exam. Do let me know how the paper goes, especially those of you that are from my classes. But even if you are just here for the live, come back in the comment section and let me know how the paper went, or find me on social or something like that. I would love to hear how your paper went. All the best, and maybe see some of you in August for CAPE Unit 1. Why is in the chat you are going to make that deep dive into CAPE? No problem, guys. Always happy to help, right? So I just want that you guys feel really prepared for your paper. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.